Salam Namaste Sasyakal. Welcome to the first episode of Marketing Insights Analyst. My name is Atish, Bhalerao. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of TrainingInbox Edtech Private Limited. Today, we have Adityan as our guest speaker. Adityan is the founding member and the CMO, the marketing head of Veera. Adityan comes with almost 2 decades of experience and has been a part of brands such as BYJU'S, NBA, Publicis Groupe. Our conversation revolved around AI in marketing, how to kickstart your marketing career, and various important topics. It was an amazing conversation, and I'm sure you guys are also going to like it. Continue watching, stay tuned. Hi Adityan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in for this podcast today.
Pleasure, Atish. Really happy you guys could come home and join me on this.
Great. So Adityan, first and the very foremost question which I want to ask you is, how would you define marketing in this revolutionized AI world?
Okay, fair. The funny thing about marketing is not much is going to actually change in the world before and after AI, right? And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, jobs will go, these things will change and things like that. I feel AI is going to be a great assistant of sorts. And what it's going to do is it's going to fill a lot of the gaps that you had in your own knowledge base, right? Each of us, like, it is impossible to know 100% of marketing.
Absolutely.
Each of us knows maybe 20% well, gets by on the remaining 80%, or 40% well, gets by on the remaining 60%. So everybody keeps worrying that, oh, AI is going to take away so many marketing jobs and things like that. I don't think that's the challenge. AI can be a fantastic assistant if used the right way, because it's impossible to know absolutely every single thing in marketing. Marketing as a world is just expanding every day.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier it used to be, okay, print ads, strategy, TVC. Now it is, okay, you need to understand search, you need to understand performance. Then now there's different things like programmatic media buying and things like that. So every year, every few months, we see a new development in this space, right? It is impossible to be 100% on top of every single one of those things. AI gives you some solutions in that space, which is definitely one fantastic way to look at it. What it also lets you do is it lets you do some amount of experimentation with a little lesser knowledge and then try fill in the knowledge gaps.
Mm-hmm.
So people who really master how to use AI to be a great assistant are going to sort of lead the pack. It's not necessarily going to replace an existing marketer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So are we trying to say this that okay, person who knows AI can be a good marketer as well?
Not necessarily. If you're a good marketer who gets AI, you can be a great marketer. But if you're somebody who doesn't get marketing, but you have AI, that doesn't make you a good marketer.
Okay. Adityan, also, while interacting with a lot of students of ours, मैंने एक बात नोटिस की है, सर मुझे कुछ नहीं आता है, इसलिए मैंने मार्केटिंग में जाना शुरू, मतलब मैंने सोचा कि मुझे कुछ नहीं आता है, मुझे नहीं श्योर था, इसलिए मैंने सोचा मार्केटिंग ले लेता हूँ. Okay. Is marketing everybody's cup of tea?
Yes and no both. And I tell you why, right? Marketing's not hard to learn. There's a lot that needs to be learned in it. Can you find a space for yourself in one very specific thing? Yes, because there are so many different parts of marketing which require such different skill sets, for example, right? And it's easy to get in. You want an internship at one of the leading communications agencies or marketing firms, you'll still find one. It's just about आप कितना कोशिश करोगे, आप कितना effort दोगे, आप कितना connect करोगे लोगों के साथ. And keep an eye on the internships that are coming out there, right? But at the same time, you can't expect to be successful at marketing just because you don't know anything else, for example, right? Some of the best marketing minds in our country has studied at not just one of the best institutions in the country, but maybe 2 of them. Because a bunch of them are ex-IIT and IIM and things like that, right? It's not that they decided, look, I want to take it light after IIT, IIM, that they came into marketing. But genuinely, some of the things that are done in marketing are taxing from an intellectual perspective. It takes a lot of intelligence, it takes a lot of creativity, it takes a lot of effort to do well in it as well. But that is the hard part of it. Entry is not that hard. You can get in with an IIM degree, you can get in with your basic BCom, BA as well. It's just about how much you're willing to apply yourself and where you're willing to start, basically. The person with a better degree will start a little higher, the person with a lesser degree might start a little lower, but you can make up for it very, very quickly as well.
Okay. So Adityan, being an industry expert, okay, and a marketer, what our audience would also like to understand is, as you said, entry is easy, okay, but not necessarily that everybody is aware. How do they enter?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you have any thoughts on that?
See, it's like any industry, right? The thing is, I think, for example, when I went to college, there not everybody was on LinkedIn and things like that. Companies barely were on LinkedIn at that point of time. So if I really wanted to go work with a car manufacturer, let's say I want to work with Ferrari, I really didn't know where to start. Maybe go to a website, but उन दिनों में उनका वेबसाइट भी बेसिक डिटेल्स मॉडल्स आते थे. ओके, आपको पार्ट्स खरीदना है, भाई मेरे को खरीदना नहीं, मेरे को उधर काम करना है. That was difficult still to do, but I think today's day and age that's changed a lot. 99% of companies list the jobs that they have on LinkedIn or on other message boards like that, right?
Job portals.
Exactly, and they do such a phenomenal job of ensuring everybody gets a chance at it. There are ways of listing internships there. You can reach out to people who you think are people doing phenomenal things, and you can reach out to them politely, not nag them, and they will at least give you some advice. I think a lot of us, like when we get written to by freshers in the industry, we do try help as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Because we've seen the struggle as well, right? So it's about making the effort. And I feel there are a lot of people who don't make the effort. Like there are a lot of people who send me lots of questions. And I can literally look at the questions and say, listen, 5 of these 10 questions you could have Googled and gotten the answer.
Understood it.
पर आप अगर खुद से effort नहीं दोगे तो there's nothing I can do to help you. I can't bring the job to you on a silver platter, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, Adityan, do you believe that if I want to pursue as a student, okay, I'm not sure. I am there in my first year of BCom or BMS or any stream. I have an inclination towards marketing. मुझे marketing अच्छा लगता है, you know. How important it would be कि बस मैं बहुत जल्दी मेरी फर्स्ट ईयर के कॉलेज मतलब कॉलेज के फर्स्ट ईयर में ही मैं उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा रिसर्च करना शुरू करूँ, प्रिपेयर करना शुरू करूँ एंड ऑल दैट. हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट इज starting early?
So one message to everybody who thinks this is a very cool job, and in fact to camera, 1% of it is cool, the remaining 99% is gada mazduri. Trust somebody who's been doing it for almost 20 years. बहुत अच्छा दिखता है, but उतना अच्छा है नहीं, because see, it's like any other job, right? There's the same amount of sweat, blood and tears on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
There's as much disappointment, as much heartbreak, as many sleepless nights and things like that, right? That said, the easiest way to know whether you're going to find your feet in this industry or not, do an internship in the industry. Do a trainee stint in the industry. Find different job roles, try different sides of it, because within marketing also there are various things, like you could work for a communications agency, you could work in PR, you could work in on ground and events, you could work in activation, you could work in retail, you can work in media buying. So and within media buying there's performance, there's programmatic, there's mainline buying, all of that, right? There is so much you can do in the industry if you just take a year and do an internship in each of these, right? 1 month, 2 months at each of these places. That will teach you far more about what you want to do and what you don't want to do in the industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if I have to summarize what you're saying, तो अगर आप एक फर्स्ट ईयर के स्टूडेंट हो तो सबसे बेस्ट ये करो, आपकी जब छुट्टियां आती है तो मार्केटिंग के अलग अलग जो कंपार्टमेंट्स हैं, करेक्ट, ओके, उसमें थोड़ा जाके एक कंपार्टमेंट में आपकी इंटर्नशिप करो, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो ऑन एंड सो ऑन एंड सो ऑन. ओके. This triggers me to the next aspect is how and what are the compartments of marketing. I mean, in this new age marketing era, how would you वो compartment कैसे बनाओगे आप जो गाड़ी को आगे लेके जाएगा, जो एक successfully deliver करेगा?
So it's tough to say, oh, these are the compartments and keep it rigid, right? And like we discussed, maybe 6 months back, there wasn't a role for a AI media manager. And literally that person's job will be to give different codes to a generative AI to get different results. Which might be very different from somebody who's actually creating a media plan physically on an Excel sheet by talking to different vendors and channels and things like that.
Or analytics or data.
Absolutely.
Data, huh?
And these things keep changing. Like, for example, I think the number of roles that have come about in data, in technology, in product, in the kind of things that we do in marketing in the last 10 years is remarkable. If you look back, there was marketing teams are so small. Like, if you look at shows like Mad Men, there were two people in
marketing. Yeah.
Right? And both of them were relatively senior. Life was very different. Now, marketing has gotten so much more operational on a day-to-day basis. There are marketing teams in this country today which are 250 people strong. And it's not like 250 people are doing one job, they're doing a plethora of jobs across. And this is internal. After that, they have agencies, they have partners, part-time consultants, people who come in just to do one thing, literally as a specialist, 2 घंटे के लिए आओ, चले जाओ kind of thing, right? So now you also see that a lot with CMOs, CDOs, chief brand officers, all of that sort of merging into that entire marketing function, right? Now, if the company is big enough and the functions are defined enough, sure, you can have 3 people doing it.
Absolutely.
But 90% of companies have one person doing all 3 people's jobs, right? So
Adityan, I would also like to understand, and this is what my observation has been. Do you think कि marketing career एक बहुत metrocentric kind of a career opportunity or option है?
see, ऐसे बहुत सारे jobs होते हैं जो metro centric बन जाते हैं unintentionally because उनका headquarters या office कोई metro city में है. But if you look at various companies, Mercedes-Benz, Pune based है. If you look at Zoho, Chennai based, for example, right? There are companies that are moving beyond the metros. It is more of a where is the company based phenomenon, less a marketing phenomenon. But also, there's a new angle to look at this from. For the longest time, all the creators, actors, celebrities, everybody lived in the metros, right? Today, if you see India's new type of creators, they live in smaller cities, they live in smaller towns, a lot of them from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets and things like that. I feel with the advent of digital communication and digital platforms and data being what it is in our country, you're going to find marketing and creators and other sort of subfields within marketing actually existing anywhere it needs to. There are VC funded companies which are hiring in cities like Rajkot.
Absolutely.
Which 10 years back you and I would have been like, Rajkot mein kaun marketing karta hai? But it's happening. It's happening in Indore. There are companies like Stage, the OTT for Bharat, which is based out of Indore, if I'm not wrong, somewhere in MP itself. There are so many startups that have actually gone and called places like Hyderabad, Chennai, Cochin,
Jaipur, Ahmedabad.
Yeah. And think about it this way, Gurgaon. Gurgaon didn't exist before 2000. It has gone on to become one of the largest hubs. And yeah, proximity to Delhi is one thing, but I think Gurgaon and Noida have now become independent hubs outside of Delhi also, right? You are seeing the importance of infrastructure projects in those places which are developing it. So if infrastructure happens and a company moves there, then you are seeing jobs also move there. But that is the core of it.
Absolutely.
If there is sales, there's manufacturing, all that, then marketing will also move to other cities other than metros. And most of these metros, anyway, the jobs are still taken by kids who came from all over the country. I'm still a kid who technically didn't study in Bombay all his life. I studied all over the place. But I came and worked in Bombay my entire life. So, sort of works, I guess, eventually.
But Adityan, would you agree to this that majority of the audience who are working, or majority of the crowd or the professionals who are working in marketing, they come from this metro cities or a tier 1 or a tier 2 cities, because बहुत कम ऐसे देखा है कि tier 2 tier 3 cities के स्टूडेंट्स कैंडिडेट्स आके मार्केटिंग इंडस्ट्री और मार्केटिंग इंडस्ट्री में आए हैं. अगर वो कर रहे हैं तो वो शायद वो ग्राफिक डिजाइनिंग कर लेंगे, वीडियो एडिटिंग कर लेंगे एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ, बट दे आर नॉट एबल टू रीच टू दैट पीक is what my observation has been.
So we have this group of marketing leaders, right? I know a bunch of them who never ever studied in a school in a metro city.
Okay.
Did their schooling in a small town, went and did their engineering or something in an even smaller town, just if wo college hua karta tha, and that's literally why the rest of the town is there, right? And they've come and done phenomenally well for themselves in these roles. It's a mixed bag. I think also what happens is people from smaller towns are dipping into their own experience set, which is very valuable in the kind of companies and the CPG companies they work for and things like that. And even being in a metro teaches you a lot of things. But I feel people who've done both bring a different amount of experience to the value chain, right? So I love the fact that I grew up in a town as small as Salem. So when I grew up in Salem, there were two big junctions in Salem. One was called 5 roads and one was called 4 roads because there's only one junction jahan 5 road mil rahe the, and there's only one junction jahan 4 road mil rahe the. And it was a really small town, but it taught me a lot about the way people buy, the way people think, the way they interact with their neighbors, what gets them to do, what gets them to the theater on a Friday. I also spent a young part of my childhood learning a language that I was not very comfortable with. Understanding what Rajnikant mania was all about.
Absolutely.
Right? But those are experiences that have shaped me because I understand those things far better than anybody else because most people have read about it. I've seen it. Right? Being in a theater while people are going crazy because Rajnikant is on screen, right?
It's still there. It's still there.
Yeah, and seeing it firsthand in a small town, you are able to then make out what the mania is like. Which sometimes if you live just in a Bangalore or a Delhi or a Gurgaon or something like that, or even a Bombay, you don't necessarily see some of these things, right? So seeing both sides of the country is important. Otherwise, you're going to be a marketer for one part of it, not necessarily for all of it.
Absolutely. So, Aditya, do you agree or do you think there is nepotism in marketing as well?
There's nepotism in every industry, and look, everybody approaches it with this thing of, oh my god, nepotism is so bad, right?
Yeah, because nepotism, इसके पहले हमने जो word सुना है सिर्फ बॉलीवुड में सुना है. Nepotism का मतलब क्या होता है? I mean, people who born with silver spoon and all that. वही उसको nepotism कहते हैं, बस अपने बच्चों को थोड़ा ज़्यादा weightage देना और ये करना. But that's why we wanted to probably put this across. That is there do you think there is a nepotism, to be very precise, in marketing as well?
See, I'll put it a little simpler. You have done better than maybe your parents did, right? They took one step, you've taken 2 steps. You're going to do everything in your power to ensure your child starts from the 3rd step and not from the same step as yours, right?
Absolutely.
And if they do it from your industry or from another industry, you're still going to put the same amount of effort into them getting that advantage. Why is it that when it's in your industry, it's considered nepotism, but some other industry, it's considered natural? Sure. If the child doesn't deserve the advantage beyond a point, there is a negative to it. But saying that person shouldn't have an advantage because of, hey, their upbringing or something like that, you can't control that anymore. All of us are the victims of our circumstance. Your child didn't ask to be born to you. She's not going to ask saying that my dad shouldn't do anything to help me. Today, even if she doesn't do it, you're still going to give her advice. Absolutely. You're still going to get her to meet people who can shape her way of thinking and things like that, right? So people focus on the active, oh, somebody opened up a favor, but it's also the upbringing. Think about it as any Gujarati family, right? A kid who grows up in it, they learn talk business from very young age, and it's innately built into them, right? And it's fantastic because by the time they're in their teens, they know dhanda. And it's such a massive advantage for when they start their job, for example. Now, that's nepotism technically, right? Because धंधे में बहुत जल्दी देखे हैं ना, उनको एडवांटेज दे
हम तो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के बारे में हम अभी बात कर रहे हैं. एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप तो वो कहाँ कब से चल रही थी?
Sustainable entrepreneurship.
Sustainable entrepreneurship. Yeah.
It made its own profit, so maybe it loses its charm. But yeah, the thing is, there has always been an advantage of some sort or the other. You need to make the best of your benefits. If you constantly look to your competition and say that person has something that I don't, you're missing what you have and they don't. Right? So don't focus on this person will get a better leg up. Focus on what you can do better. Focus on what is your advantage, your network, your talent, because that's what is going to help you get ahead, basically.
Absolutely.
And look, there is going to be unfairness. But that's the theme of every Bollywood movie from Zamanas, which is that यार किसी को तो unfair advantage कभी ना कभी मिलता
है और वो मिलते रहेगा. So yeah, I mean, to an extent, yes, I also agree. But one important aspect which you probably spoke about was Gujarati family में ये है वो है.
I love it. Like I've been, so I grew up in Bombay a few years. You could go to the house and I'm telling you, over breakfast they would actually teach the kid to think a little deeper about what is in front of them, right? So one of the friends' houses I went to, they dealt in food substances.
Okay.
So literally the dhokla we were eating, and they got him to actually think about what goes into making that dhokla, how that each component has a price tag to it. And because iska dam, iska dam, iska dam, iska dam, jod ke, this is why the dhokla costs so much. And that was not the conversation my parents are having with me in fifth standard, but helps him.
Absolutely. So, where I'm coming from is now that's the upbringing.
Yes.
Okay, that's the cultural upbringing which would probably develop into sustainable entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship. But here, there are a lot of families or parents who are not sure that whether they should allow their kid to switch from an IT industry, from a banking industry or a finance industry to a marketing industry. Okay. Though you have already mentioned that boss, it is not a cool job altogether, but then what would be your thought process, or what would you say, or what would be your suggestions that for the parents saying this, guys, just let them breathe.
See, it's a generational thing. Why are our parents more conservative about the jobs they should take? Because they struggled way more than we have.
Absolutely.
Their struggle allowed us to struggle a little less. But the amount of struggle they did makes them more conservative about what they think we should do, right? Because at the same time, they don't want us to struggle as much as they did when they were children as well. And we do look at education as a way to overcome that struggle and come out on top more than anything else, right? And have a better life more than anything. But education is one of many paths. And by education, I don't mean going to school. By education, I mean everything that you do in that path, which is getting a degree, getting your post-graduation degree, all of those things, right? Today, we have seen so many different paths. We are seeing employers who are now willing to not ask for a degree certificate anymore. There are few of them, but there's still some of them who are making that decision.
At least they have started the initiative. Yeah.
Correct. And that's because, okay, vocational training is important. If you go to countries like the US, a carpenter's job is not seen as a lower job. The carpenter also makes a lot of money. Right? So it is all about what is the respect for what you're doing, what is the opportunity, how can you make a living for yourself, and look, what are you going to be happy with?
Absolutely.
Today, if I know that I can be happy with making X amount of money and I know I can make that X amount of money doing something simple, I have the choice to go ahead and do that.
Absolutely.
And I think it's what our parents wanted for us. And look, from their limited vision of what they see, because the world was also very different. I think the world's been very different from the time we went to school, college, and then now here. Like, there was no 4G data when I was in college.
Not even mobile phones.
Exactly. So there has been a seismic shift in technology, right? And expecting parents to keep up with that is difficult. But I think it's also our job to have that conversation with them. They think of it as one route to get out of struggle. Today there are multiple routes. I think the MS Dhonis and the Virat Kohlis of the world have shown us that, right? And sure, cricket is one of them, but let's say Kabaddi is one of them. Badminton is one of them. Becoming a medal winner for India is one of them. The kind of things that there are corporates and states doing, Orissa government is doing with sports.
Absolutely.
The JSW is doing in sports. There's so many avenues now for being a sports person in India.
Absolutely, and especially after whatever we have achieved in the Asian Games as well. I mean, the kind of the performance India, we do consideration of the performance of India.
True, and even becoming a musician today. If you told somebody 20 years back that you could create a career in music or being a YouTuber, people would laugh. But Carrie Minati is not just making a living; he's killing it on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Right? He's making more money than possibly 99.9% of Indians. And which is an amazing thing that look, people have been able to find these niches and been able to financially make it work for them.
Absolutely.
Passion, finance, दोनों आ जाए तो बहुत बढ़िया है. But it is that you have to find these examples, you have to test it out, but you also keep your options open. Because I think we are not fully emerged from that struggle phase of our lives, right? It was just about 10, 15, 20 years in various parts of our life. It gives us more options. But as we get to more comfortable places, we will stop seeking a safety net possibly. We will take those risks in a slightly more larger way to ensure that, hey, we are going all in. I don't think for a lot of homes, all in is still feasible. There's still the limitation of itna hi tankha milta hai, yehi hai social circumstance and things like that. And that's the reality for a large part of our population. So it's a fine line. It's going to take some time for us to thread that line.
Absolutely. But yeah, what I could also gauge from the conversation what we had for on this topic is there is definitely a need of dialogue. There's definitely a need of conversation. Just have a word, even if you want to or probably pursue a career after even if you are a working professional, if you want to reconsider of pursuing a career into marketing, it is possible. Speak to your parents, make your near ones, dear ones realize that, and so on. Okay.
Or your spouses, depending on when you just make the choice.
Yes. If you are pursuing something else in terms of IT, finance, any other thing, okay, and if you want to pursue a career into marketing, again, you probably have to have a conversation with your family, make them understand, make them realize. Before doing that, get a practical hang of it, practical experience through internships and so on. Okay. Now, Adityan, we're having an amazing conversation, all right? I mean, it's going in such a flow, but I'm going to be diverting a bit,
Sure.
okay? Where we're going to be understanding from a marketer who has just revealed about what's itna cool job nahi hota hai. I'm just going to emphasize that. Okay, if this marketer is looking out to a candidate, okay, what is an ideal candidate? From somebody who comes with 2 decades of experience in it.
So this is a tough one because there's no single rule that can apply for hiring any candidate. But usually a lot of people want different basics. I think for me, the basic has always been curiosity and hunger.
Okay.
I think those are two foundational elements. You could be the most qualified candidate on the planet, but if you don't have curiosity and hunger, you're not going to survive in any org or team that I run, just because it needs a certain amount of curiosity to do your job better.
Mm-hmm.
If you do your job thinking what you're already doing and the way you're doing it is perfect and nothing needs to change, right? You're never going to discover a better way to do it.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying the entire way needs to be better, but usually there's a 1%, 2%, 5% optimization that can make it infinitely easier, infinitely better. And that is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
So those become the foundational things. Then, okay, how honest are people? Like, I feel marketing is one of those careers where you are going to make mistakes, and possibly a lot of other jobs every day. Mistakes and part and parcel of it, and that's how you're going to learn. But I'd rather hire somebody who will stand up and say, my mistake, rather than say, maine kuch galti nahi.
Mm-hmm.
Because to learn from the mistake, you admit that you made a mistake in the first place, right? And we run teams that are meant to be fearless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to penalize somebody who works with me for making a mistake. I'll probably be angry with them for not learning from it, but not about making it. We've all made mistakes. We made terrible ones. Some of which we've also gone public. We still kept our jobs in a lot of those cases despite those mistakes, right? So it's our responsibility to pass a lot of those learnings. And I think while these three are the basic tenets for me, I would say also respect for people. If you can't respect the people you work with, if you can't respect that they're professionals and bring something to the table, then that's where everything fails. If you think you are the be all and end all of the universe and everything rotates around you, that's a really bad way to go about it. And so we usually hire people who are always trying to learn more, who are very good team players, who are wanting to always learn more and sort of apply that in a way that is practical, willing to make mistakes, willing to bounce back from it, don't think that's the end of the world. Those are the things that are more critical. Beyond that, it's interesting life experiences. So that's literally the order of priority for me. Then maybe any degree, anything, and more the degree because of what they would have learned or the kind of things that they would have sort of gotten exposure to than the degree itself. Doesn't matter if they went to XYZ post-graduation or got an ABC MBA. I'm more about, hey, did they go to this place and
Explore something.
yeah, go out of their comfort zone, right? Do something which was unnatural. Did they sort of go and fund their own education? Because that means that person's also got a lot of drive to back up that hunger, curiosity, and all of those things, and willing to take a risk on themselves.
Absolutely.
Those are critical things to learn about people. And I feel most interviews now, we're just trying to check off those boxes of, okay, went to this college. You're not getting those essentials on that page, right? That CV doesn't tell you anything.
Then you don't need AI will replace the interviewer as well.
And I feel both AI and interviewers might be a raw deal in this, because fundamentally, if you're hiring good talent, they have to be good human beings, and they need to have a lot of human aspects about them, right? I think the problem is now any job that happens, and you can see this on LinkedIn, the role comes up, and within the first hour, 200 applicants. And I don't blame the system for weeding out on the basis of some criteria. So, yeah, you do need something to make your CV stand out. And yeah, you also need people to start looking at more interesting ways to hire. You can't take every CV on the planet and hope, and so you probably need to have tighter JDs. People also need to be conscious about the fact that when they're applying for a role, do they really have the qualifications for it?
Just don't apply for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's become so easy now that people are not thinking about press apply. People sitting on LinkedIn, this candidate who reached out to me saying, I'm looking to make a job. So I said, okay, what have you tried on LinkedIn? It's like, I've applied to everything in marketing. So what do you mean everything in marketing? Like, I'm a fresher, but I've applied to CMO roles also. It's like, boss, that's not the way it works. You're going to irritate a whole bunch of
Absolutely.
people. In this process, it's not worth it, right?
Especially when you have ATS, which is application tracking system.
Correct.
Once your resume is rejected from the ATS, at least I guess some of the organizations do not allow you to apply for 90 days. Some of them do not allow you to apply for 6 months or so on.
Correct.
So you need to be very selective when you are applying as a candidate as well. So Adityan, we spoke about the ideal candidate, what you would be looking out or what you would look up to and so on. Now, let's understand, if they want to become an ideal candidate, what exactly we spoke about characteristics.
Correct.
We spoke about soft skills and all that stuff, right? Now, let's deep dive and understand what are skills adoption they should have. See, I would probably put it across very loud and clear with the audience. Guys, if you're saying that Google Workspace, Microsoft Office, okay, this is default.
Yeah.
If you don't know, please don't apply for any jobs. Okay,
Fair.
Gone those days where you can mention, okay, I know Microsoft Excel and all that. If you don't know, please don't apply for jobs. You're not meant to be You're not meant to be in a corporate world. Rather, go to a baniya ki dukan and start working there.
No, I think if you work at a trader's shop also, Excel is an invaluable tool for you, right? In
Absolutely.
fact, you need to know your numbers far more there than possibly in a lot of other places.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think basic skill sets is definitely you need to know everything in the Microsoft and Google suites and things like that. I think the ability to, and this is again going to be a little more nuanced as to direction, right? For somebody who's sitting in my role eventually, I think the ability to understand and read data reports, for example, is so critical. The ability to use things like Tableau Reader, the ability to work with softwares like Salesforce, the ability to work with, let's say, even a Meta Business Suite, for example. Now, each of these in their entirety, like somebody look at it and say, but this is one person's one small job. But it's the thing is, sometimes when I'm looking at it, I might notice something that somebody else is not looking for specifically.
Because of experience.
Exactly. And it's the one thing that you tend to ignore because it doesn't have a bearing on what you're doing. But it's good for you to have that exposure because you tend to take the data and see if you can do something with the data point, which is a little different.
Analyze it in a right manner so that it probably comes up or gives us the desired results.
Yeah, and for example, I started my career in advertising, right? And well, I was a account management person. I don't really need to know how to design, use Photoshop, and things like that. But at the same time, knowing some bit of Illustrator and Photoshop at least allowed me to know not to be made an idiot of when we were having conversations, right? And I think that base level awareness is important. But today, I think there are some AI engines that can replace some of these knowledge bases, for example. But I definitely think some things will stay standard. I think Tableau Reader, for example, is going to be there in our lives. I think the way Salesforce has given us a great way to sort of analyze how CRM can be done very
Customer
effectively.
relationship manager.
Absolutely. So those things are still critical to have, right? So, but once you do your internships, right, and you figure the area that you want to go into, the skill sets also become a lot clearer. You want to become a design or a UI UX specialist, then knowing Figma possibly is a bigger skill set than everything else combined, for example. And honestly, I'm using Figma in depth the last few years, right? And I look at it with a lot of fascination because it's so much more user friendly than a lot of Adobe's creative products used to be. And I've used a lot of those creative products for years, but it's fascinating the things it lets you do. But at the same time, I'm seeing social media managers completely reinvent the way they're doing content with, say, something like Canva. So these things have become so much easier. There's literally different tools depending on where you want to specialize or where you want to create your own little content. Right?
But I somewhere, Adityan, also believe that these are your base skills which are required. I mean, for example, if you want to, like for example, if you want to pursue a career into finance, okay, there are basic finance rules, which is debit what comes out, credit what goes out, and
basic rules, and you need to know how to use Tally also.
Correct. Now, in this aspect, if you want to pursue a career into marketing, I think you spoke about Figma. I mean, I am not from a marketing background, okay, but I know how to use Figma. I started learning Figma. Canva, okay, Canva, absolutely. Illustrator, absolutely. You need to know. Okay, Photoshop, okay. I mean, these are basic things. If you don't learn this, and it is not just one.
But that's the thing. See, I think we have the ability to look back and say, "Oh God, our career has been so this good and bad to the long career," but we've evolved into using some of these things, right? Which is great, and some of these things have phased out also. I remember Corel Draw was a big thing when we started.
Absolutely.
I don't think I've seen Corel Draw in at least a decade now, and it's a good change. I think the fact that we're moving towards things like Figma is good for the industry as a whole, right? Because they are more user friendly. But you will see replacements happen also. But you'll also see new tools come. I'm waiting to see, like for example, I think they just announced today that you can now get DALI image generation, image AI within the Bing search itself, the Bing image search itself. So it's going to be fascinating to see the kind of images you can now generate, not just search for, right? Within a Bing search, where you're able to do so many fascinating things with very little design expertise to call it that, right?
Absolutely.
So possibly understanding some of these newer platforms, especially generative AI, gives you an advantage because you don't need to do the Gada Mazuri we did and say, understand Illustrator, okay, how does Lasso tool work on Photoshop and things like that. Today, if you want to remove the background for something, your iPhone can do it for you in 2 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
No Lasso tool for it, which used to sit and get all the points.
Pointers, the outer lines, and then cut it, paste it, and then use the other aspects and so on.
So I think tools that help you hack your way through a lot of these things definitely useful, and keeping your ears open to learn these things, right? I feel these tools are in front of us every single day and they do amazing things. So it's just about being open-minded enough to say, while this tool looks like a good content creation thing, I can also use it for marketing in X, Y, and Z ways.
Absolutely. I completely agree that that if you want to not just sustain, but if you want to scale, keep yourself upskilled, updated about things and so on. Because things are evolving. Okay, we have seen the very first thing which we spoke about, the very first conversation of us where we started with was how AI has evolved in the industry altogether and so on. Correct? Okay. Adityan, the last part of our discussion today. Okay. Though it's going an amazing conversation we are having. I wish to have you back on the podcast again, where we will go in depth about what exactly, which, why, which technology, why, how to use on all that stuff. But
so subscribe for part 2, basically.
Yes. So that calls for a part 2, which is a definite for sure. But before we conclude this amazing conversation of ours, do you think in any means, okay, by any space where in the academics, okay, in the day-to-day studies, what the students are going through, we foresee any changes in the curriculum or the syllabus one? Okay. which would also have an impact, or which we want that to be impacted uh, with due consideration of our various success stories as a country. I mean, G20 summit leadership. Then we talk about Chandrayaan 3, Aditya L1. We call it a Samudrayaan right now, which we're working on, and then various other. And also, India has been known as a youngest, or probably having a young country. Okay, do you think we are more focused on marketing right now? We are not talking about a holistic approach right now. If you wish to, you can also have an holistic approach. But don't you think? I mean, the marketing should be taught in a more practical way, rather than seven C's and seven nine eights of marketing and falanas. See, those are basics. I respect that.
I never remember that.
Okay. But right now, get them into learning what the ground wants, what exactly wants, what the future wants.
Okay, so I'll take a slightly wider stab at this and then come specifically to marketing. Right? The country is changing, and I'll use my own example to a certain extent. I'm a kid who stopped doing science after 10th standard. I got to do humanities with economics and a few commerce subjects and mathematics and things like that, right? Subjects which I felt prepared me better for a career in marketing. I got to know numbers, psychology, economics, all of that. Great. I had a mother who was encouraging enough to find a course which was great for the same marketing, which was mass media. So I didn't go to a BCom or a BMS. I went and did a BMM, for example.
Okay.
So I also felt that I met a lot of people who were like-minded in the kind of career that I sought out.
And guidance and mentoring as well.
Absolutely. And like you also learn from the people that you're studying with, right? The one advantage to doing a particular course is the people more than everything else around you.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, this is still for a very small section. It's widening slowly. And it's also a reflection of the way change is going to different parts of society, right? There will be a day when it is okay for kids in smaller towns to have dreams beyond IIT, right? And that's when they will have alternate paths also seen as viable options.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the joke is that all Indians go to engineering to figure out what they want to do in life, right? That will change sometime. Parents will realize that engineering jaake karne ki zarurat nahi, so that they don't need a safety net of sorts. But it's also because of the struggle that they face, which we discussed sometime back, right? The minute the struggle reduces, the willingness to take risks increases.
Mm-hmm.
When the willingness to take risks increases, there will be demand for such courses, and then you will see the proliferation of those courses across the country.
Mm-hmm.
I feel there is still a lot of these options that are now there, especially digital formats and things like that. The penetration is still going to take some time to pick up. It's happening in pockets. But yeah, it's a matter of comfort. It's a matter of also seeing what the value from some of these courses is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking specifically to marketing, yeah, I mean, I definitely do wish some of these things were more tailored to specifically what you need to know for the career. But now I look back and think about the fact that they could have never prepared me for the advent of technology the way it has happened, or for data the way it has come, or for AI the way it has come, right? They are very caught in the founding principles of marketing in a lot of ways. For some people, they're great because that structure provides a lot of sort of
introduces you to an excerpt. Yeah.
And it gives them a foundation to work off of, right? There are people who will always work off those foundations, and there are people who will work creatively off of very different foundations, and that's completely okay. I think you can give people the right foundation, and then it's an ongoing learning process, like you said, because there's always going to be some base learning and then a lot of upskilling and things like that. You have to do basis the environment, the situation, the context that you're in. So I do wish they taught us better. I don't have a solution for how they can do it better. And that's, I think, going to be the tricky space, because there's so much that's changing. I think about it now. I taught masters briefly, and the entire thing is, if we were to change the curriculum, we'd right now literally be changing curriculum every year. You'd literally be changing it as you're teaching it. You imagine going into class one day and saying, listen, everything we spoke about in the last class doesn't apply anymore.
That's how it is, right? That's how it is. I mean, if we do not have the bandwidth of doing it,
Correct.
why not just privatize everything.
But even in privatized, so for example, the colleges I taught at were private; they were not government affiliated in any way, right? But even which is why I think the focus is to shy away from very precise execution methods, because what is a precise execution method today is dead and gone tomorrow.
May not be applicable tomorrow. Yeah.
Correct. Like I think so. For example, I taught an advertising course, introduction to advertising. So what I tried to inculcate was a curiosity about what is the message at the core of it, not just what is the shiny TVC or the message or the campaign or the activation or
the
digital
BTL activities, ATL activities.
Exactly. So it's not about that, but it was about okay, what lies at the core of it? What do you think the brief was? What do you think they're trying to achieve? If you teach people to dig deep, and I think teaching curiosity was one of the ways I went in, because I thought about look, what are the kind of people I want to hire, and I tried instilling some of that in the kids I taught, right? And I think that might be a way to do it. It's not perfect. It works for some people. It doesn't work for some people, right? Because they're also, when you sit in a class with 80 kids, you realize that look, this message is resonating with an X amount of them, but it's not getting any traction with Y amount, and that's the thing. So you tailor these methods on an ongoing basis. But how many teachers are going to have the ability to do that on an ongoing basis? Like, and I could do that because as a part-time lecturer, right?
Do the teachers have the adaptability or the adaptability? Or
some of them, yes. I mean, I'm grateful to have had some great teachers who build that same curiosity more than anything else. And there are going to be some teachers who are not that great, right? It's generally the luck of the draw. And I'm sure some of the teachers I thought were not great. There are some kids who definitely are best teacher on the planet, taught us so well, taught us how to understand this. Maybe I think of it as a tu mug karke sab kuch sikha kind of thing. They think of it as boss, she made sure that we passed our exams with flying colors. So it's a matter of perspective also on these things. And these diverse perspectives are going to exist. Whatever you do with education, I think some colleges that are doing it really well are the ones who are insisting that go out and get industry experience. I think aiding education with real world experience is what is going to be the best combination.
How early?
Literally first year of college.
Absolutely.
Like I find, so we were speaking about FCB some time back, right? I think they had one of the nicest trainee programs. I don't know if it's still there, should check with them. But the fact that you could do 2 months in each department on a rotation basis for a 6-month traineeship, right? That's a phenomenal program. Those, I think, are the kind of internships and programs that we need in India to genuinely give birth to better marketers, because you need to make them experience everything and come back. And some of the multinationals have the capability to do it because they have multiple companies in different spaces to give that holistic view. And it's the same with
exposure also.
Correct, and it's the same with large tech companies. Whether it's a Meta or something like that, the fact that they have an Instagram, Threads, Facebook, WhatsApp, it's convenient for them to rotate so that you can get a view of everything, and even within each of these companies, different departments. Because I think it's more important to train these people for a year so you can get the best out of them than take whatever is already there and hope to make the best of it. So it's that willingness to train that's also important. So it needs to be a little bit of a collab between the student and the employer, both, for it to really reach that space. Because the employer also needs to take management training and internship positions seriously.
Absolutely. So, Adityan, summarizing the entire thought process, there is definitely a need for the industry, like we say companies, the industry to come forward.
Yeah.
The academicians to come forward, collaborate with them. The education system to come forward, take the initiatives where the industry and academics or academical in the institutes, the government institutes, the colleges should come forward, which would probably produce or create more better marketeers for India, not just for our country, but then across the globe. Super amazing discussion. I've been emphasizing on this. I guess this is the third or fourth time I've been talking about this. But with due consideration of the time constraint, we may have to conclude for today. But this also definitely calls for a part 2. Where, as we said, we'll deep dive on more technical aspects, and I'm sure our audience is going to eagerly waiting for that episode as well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adityan, for being here. It was pleasure and amazing conversation again.
Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks.
And look forward to doing this again. Let's see.
Thank you. Thanks.
Super.